The Vega is a high-wing monoplane designed and built by Lockheed in the late 1920s. Designed as a long-distance passenger, cargo and recreational aircraft, it set many records worldwide. Amelia Earhart flew one across the Atlantic for the first time, and Wiley Post used it to prove the existence of the jet stream. Wing42 are a new developer on the flight simulator scene, with this being their first product released. In this review, I shall look in detail at this aircraft and the features that it brings to you. One thing that I will also mention is that at the time of writing this review, the aircraft is very much in early access, which means while the aircraft is functional, there are still numerous features to come, and this is something I'll go into detail in throughout this review. Installation of the Wing42 Lockheed Vega is simple and follows your average installer. After purchasing the aircraft on their website, you can download the installer from your account. When you run it, all you have to do is select your chosen simulator and the installation is complete. You get a total of 3 different PDF documents explaining as to how the aircraft works and what it includes. These did take a bit of searching to find, as they are located in your app data folder of your system as opposed to the usual aircraft subfolder. These documents, however, are clear and easy to read and do explain each and every step of starting up the aircraft and what each button and switch does. As a side note, I have also had a preview at an upcoming physical printed checklist that will also come in the future, and these do look quite cool. Once the final design is done, they will be printed and ready for sale on their website. The Lockheed Vega 5 is a very beautiful aircraft, sleek in design and its massive bulky engine at the front. The modelling of this add-on does do it proud. You get a lot of detail in the aircraft, which ultimately makes it a fantastic plane to look at, especially when flying. When you look deep into its body, you can see where each bump has been defined through mapping, down to the bolts and to the panel gaps that held the aircraft together, while large details such as the slot for landing lights to sit in has also been physically made into the model itself. A passenger cabin has also been modelled, which is visible from both the internal and external views. Looking through the passenger windows, you can see the simple bench-style seating that the aircraft had back when it was in passenger service, namely with Braniff Airlines. The interior, however, is something I'll go into more detail later on. One thing to also mention is the animations you get with this aircraft. When you look at the engine, the top cover does vibrate along with it. This is something that the real aircraft did, as engines in the time were not so efficient and instead were majoritively loud and bulky. Wing42's rendition of this is very well done and does suit the package well. You also get a full flight surface animations too, as well as the rear cabin door. Textures are split into their different components, for example one for the rudder, one for the fuselage, one for the wing, etc. and differ in resolution depending on what they are covering. This is a good way to ensure that you have high quality textures across the entire model, while minimising the file sizes at the same time. So for example, while the rudder may only be done in a 1K resolution texture, the whole fuselage is done at full 4K resolution. Within the simulator, it does all appear very high quality, to the point that any writing is on the aircraft is visible and clear to read. You get a total of 6 liveries with the aircraft too. These are the Lockheed house colours per se, Wing42's own custom livery, Braniff Airways, a Shell corporate plane, a military livery, and Jim Matten's Eagle. The cockpit of the Vega is also done to a very high standard and very much looks the part. All of the gauges you expect to see are modelled and do all look really good with full 3D depth built into them. The colouring and texture work of the aircraft also stands out and gives the aircraft a real feel for its age. Weathering has been applied throughout the cockpit and cabin, and for the most part, it does look really good. The cockpit seatback has also been animated, allowing you to open and close it, giving you full access to the cabin from the cockpit. As the pilot sat in the front and above the passengers in the Lockheed, the pilot would have to open a small hatch to be able to climb into his seat. And this is something that has been added to the aircraft, which shows the level of detail that the developer is trying to get within their add-on. Speaking of the cabin, this has also been fully modelled with 2 camera viewpoints set inside of it. The cabin, as mentioned previously, is a simple bench-style layout with large windows either side for passengers to look out of. The hand grips on the roof also do move around and are dynamic to the way you are flying the aircraft. Changing position in bangs and during turbulence, they do sway around as you'd expect. For example, in a sharp turn, they will swing around rather violently. When it comes to the operation of the aircraft, this is one of the biggest features of this add-on. This was built long before automated startups, meaning that you had to go through a very precise checklist in order to get the engine running. The aircraft, however, was years ahead of everything else at the time, and is comparable to most modern day, say, Piper Cherokee aircraft when you do go through the checklist. The Vega is also very much a hands-on aircraft, and this add-on does try to replicate that as close as possible, almost study level at this time. You also do get a fancy UI system, which goes through the checklist of the aircraft, but also a configuration panel too, which means you can also set the payload as well as the fuel on board, and ground items such as wheel chocks and ground vehicles while stationary. This is something I very much do like about this aircraft, and it's something that does make it stand out by giving you total control of not just what you can do while you're in the air, but also while you're on the ground as well. One thing I also absolutely love about the aircraft is the functional spark plugs and fuse box. If you want to disable part of the aircraft, you can do so through the switches on the box, or instead what you can do is unscrew it, open up the panel, mess with the wires and fuses directly. While it may not be 100% there yet, this is something that will become a full engine management system that will eventually be integrated into the aircraft. This I'll talk more of though in the later on when I go through the early access parts of this aircraft. Sound wise, while speaking to the developer, this is something that we both agree is a bit lacking right now. Engine loops aren't exactly the best in the world and does take away from the experience. The sounds themselves are also fairly basic and in some cases use the FSX default setup. They have however mentioned to me that they do aim to make a full external sound system in the future and potentially have a third party company create the sound loops instead. They have also said that the aim of this aircraft is to be the most immersive possible, and so are willing to go anywhere in order to get the best they possibly can out of it. Flight dynamics are also 90% of the way there. You have an aircraft that is very fun to fly, but does also need some minor tweaks as well, something that we'll also see in the engine simulation management once it is fully developed. When it comes to your payload, this at the moment does very much affect the weight and feel of the aircraft in the air. When carrying a full load with a full fuel tank, the Vega is a lot heavier and therefore unstable when flying. Stalling is also very easy to achieve if you don't manage the weight properly, something that I found out the hard way. While it still uses tables and numbers to set define flight characteristics in the aircraft, something that FSX and P3D can unfortunately be quite limited in, this add-on does have a number of set variables, or depends on how you fly and the setup of the aircraft itself, giving you a much more realistic feel over how the aircraft will fly. While a number of aircraft in this simulator do suffer from the fact that each time you fly it feels the same no matter what weather preset you're in, the Vega does very much have its own character and does change depending on how you fly it each time. As you burn fuel, the aircraft also does start to feel a lot lighter. However, flying overweight, you will struggle to get off the ground and climb. These characteristics do differentiate it from anything else I've definitely flown on this platform before. So, as mentioned earlier, yes, this aircraft is very much in early access. At present, the aircraft is flyable and does work very much as it should, but there is a lot more planned for the Vega in the future. The developer aims to eventually implement a full engine management system as mentioned earlier, and I think what they'll do is fairly similar to what Just Flights have with their current setup in the more recent GA aircraft they have made, but with a lot more depth going into it. That means as well as your full engine management, you will also need to maintain the aircraft, ensure everything is in tip-top condition, otherwise it all goes wrong. You will also start to see improvements in the sound and flight dynamics too, as both are worked on to make the aircraft feel a lot more immersive in the flight simulator. That, and along with conditions-based failure system, where depending on how well you fly the aircraft and maintain it, the better it will be to fly. I'm definitely expecting that this add-on will be something that very much defines how people fly in Flight Simulator in the future. Effects on the aircraft are also set to be improved too. Right now, we do have default smoke textures on hard landings and engine startup, and to a very basic volumetric 3D landing lights when you do switch it on. Eventually though, new effects will be added to the interior and exterior of the aircraft, giving you a full feel for immersion, even as far as depending on what weather you're flying in. You can check out more of this upcoming stuff on their website too. So, what more is there to say about this add-on? I've definitely had a lot of fun while flying the Vega 5, and the aircraft itself is not one I'd actually expect to find myself flying, as for those that know me, I do like my heavy metal aircraft when it comes to flying. The Vega, however, is something different. Something that I've definitely grown to love the more I flew it at different times of the day with different payloads and weather presets. The lifelikeness of the aircraft is also definitely something that makes it stand out. While not completely done yet, you do see a lot of where the management features will come into play. Flying the Vega does also take some practice, as the flight dynamics have been worked to make the aircraft feel very different depending on its weight distribution and weather factors. You can definitely see how much work has been put behind this aircraft, and I have to say, it is impressive. You can look closely at the amount of detail that there is already in the model, just to see how far the developer is willing to go. They have also told me that they are committed to putting a lot more time into this project as well, until it's everything they want from it, the most realistic and historic aircraft on any flight simulator platform. Pricing is also set to €45, but while the aircraft is in early access, you can actually pick it up for a very honest €25, which I feel is a very nice price for this aircraft and all the features that it has, plus future updates as the aircraft goes into more development. Likewise, if you use my discount code Drawyah20 when purchasing the aircraft, you can also get a further 20% off the total cost, which I think is quite a nice extra on top of that. So, if you're a fan of pre-war aircraft or would like to fly something very hands-on as opposed to automated systems, then the Lockheed Vega 5 by Wing42 is something that is very much worth looking into.